Hello and welcome to today's video. Today we are looking at Toronja jelly. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Cirque describes this as a collegiate green. I literally had to Google that color. And wow, did the search results transport me back in time. I was suddenly that food critic in Ratatouille, trying the rat's dish for the first time. I saw my high school fashion mirrored back at me. I had not thought of striped green Adidas tracksuits for a while, but I have to say I really liked the green shoes with the pink stripes that I saw. Maybe I need a pair. And yes, that color perfectly describes this polish. I know it's also the color of the bottle of the Jarritos grapefruit flavor, which is why it's in the collection, but I had no idea that this color had such a specific name. I thought this had a good amount of color in one coat. I didn't happen to get it particularly even, but I wasn't planning on wearing it in one, so was not particularly concerned. Just because I don't have a use for this in one coat doesn't mean there isn't one. I did get good evenness on my other fingers when I wasn't on camera. If your complaint regarding Cirque jellies is that they are too sheer, I think this collection in particular might be a bit of a remedy for that. Also, if you can hear roaring in the background, I'm very sorry. I tried to clip as much of it out as I could, but it's another very hot day, so the AC is going overtime. Of course, I say that while it's off, so maybe it's not as obvious as I think it is. I was buying the re-released magnetics and needed to grab 2 more polishes to fill out my order. This polish was a guarantee for me. I had wanted this from the time of its release, but the collaboration price tag had kept me from buying it. It looked like they dropped the price when they were brought back. I'm a little confused at them coming back in the first place since I understood them to be limited edition. But I wasn't about to put in a complaint. So this polish did not take a lot of consideration for me. It was aerial act that I had to think about for about half an hour. In 2, I quite like this. I will probably wear this in 2 most of the time. As expected with a jelly, it gives more color and more coverage. I feel like it keeps more of that squishy jelly feel that makes jelly so fun. But for more coverage and color, we are valiantly going on to 3. I'm such a hero, I know. I've swung fully from childishly refusing to do 3 coats to demanding congratulations for it. At least that didn't happen in back-to-back videos. I'll give this an 80 to 85% opacity rating in 2 coats. You can still clearly see through it to my nail, but sometimes a jelly can give you the feeling of a gradient because the free edge looks so different than the rest of the nail, but that's not true here. In the 3rd, it does not reach full opacity. It gives a kind of coverage that, although you can still see your nail line, the color doesn't look like a gradient, as I said. I hesitate to describe it this way because I feel like it will sound insulting, but there is a bit of a waxy aspect to the polish in 3 coats. And I mean that literally. Like you have melted crayon onto your nails. I like the look, but it isn't necessarily how I imagined it looking in 3. More than likely I will indeed stop at 2. I don't feel like that small amount of extra opacity is a thing I need. I'd now give this around a 90% rating for opacity. You can still see your nail line, but you do have to do a tiny amount of searching. In the sun, you can see the polish in comparison to my trees and various plants. I think without another color for comparison, this might look like a true green. However, the polish has just a touch of blue in it. Once you see it next to vegetation, the slight yellow tone of my plants becomes a good indicator of the slight bluishness of the polish. There isn't a lot of blue. I would never call this a teal, but just that it has a very slight lean towards the blue side of the color wheel. It is a cool-toned green. The grass green Tanager reminded me of this polish in the bright sunlight. I didn't know until reading this today that birds that are green, most of them are not actually green. They use a mechanism similar to most birds that are blue, say like a blue jay, and it's simply that light refracts through their feathers in a very certain sort of way to make them look that color. So most green birds are not green. In the shade, you are seeing the polish against a background of mint, parsley, and creeping jenny. You can see how yellow they look by comparison. And as you might know, most mint plants aren't really that yellow. This is just by comparison. I do think the waxy aspect of the polish disappears in the shade and it looks more glassy. I have been trying to shoehorn in a very specific bird to my videos and with no success so far. Until today. Today I get to talk about the Resplendent Quelzal. I'm very excited about that. I think that this polish in the sun very much looks like the Quelzal, mostly the dorsal side of the bird. They're an amazing bird with these extremely long trailing tail feathers that make them look otherworldly, and they have these fluffy looking little heads. I would love to see one in person. Sadly, I do not live in Central America, and they do not seem to thrive in a zoo environment, so I'm out of luck. Inside, the polish does look darker, and that does reflect the lower illumination. Strangely, even though there is no green for contrast, this is where the polish looks most blue to me. Still not teal. Maybe I'm already primed to see it that way, so I'm visually biased. Also, this is where it looks most collegiate green to me. You could disappear into a rack of pants at any athletic store, if you could time travel. You could be your own collegiate green chameleon, perfectly camouflaged. And that is all for today. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe so that I can craft my own chipmunk console controller. It will just be a series of wooden levers with peanuts strapped to them very securely. Please enjoy a clip of the chipmunk sitting in his bribery bowl. Hi, Chippy. Are you enjoying things in the bowl? I know. This is how I keep you from being underneath my feet. I know. You're so cute.